We've got some good news for Democrats for a change. We'll start with that. We'll also talk about the No Kings protest momentum and some of the whining from our friends on the right. We'll talk about the Maine Senate drama, Epstein, Venezuela, and more. Welcome back to the podcast for the 54% of Americans who regularly vote for progress in every election and want to convince their friends and family members to join our majority. This is Majority 54. Welcome back, Stephen Weber. The audience will be familiar with him by now. Stephen, without further ado, let's just jump into it because I'm so sick of giving our audience doom and gloom. I think we've got some momentum. Let's go to Harry Etten at CNN.
New polling just out was really eye-popping to me.
It was shocking to me, John, and it comes down to party identification. Do you identify as a Democrat or as a Republican? And traditionally speaking, this is a metric that has been quite telling of elections, and we'll get into that a little bit. Party ID margin, Dem versus Republicans. Specifically, I'm talking about Gallup. Back in Q1 of 2025, it was a tie. Look at how much Democrats have gained on this metric, according to Gallup. Their latest metric, Democrats are ahead by 7 points. That is a 7-point movement to the left. I looked at some other pollsters as well to see if there was similar movement. Among Quinnipiac, it was +1 Republican. And you can see again, movement to the left, Democrats +3. You know, last year, going into the 2024 presidential election, that was the rare time in which Republicans actually held a lead in Gallup's party ID measure. That Republican lead is no more. Adios, amigos, eliminated. Now Democrats ahead by 7 points, at least according to Gallup.
And this is when pollsters call and ask you for your party. Basically, this is self-reporting of what party you're in.
So, Stephen, the context here is that Democrats were +4 heading into 2018 during Q3 2017, +1 at the equivalent point heading into 2022, which, if folks remember, we surprised. I think the Democrats overperformed in 2022. Obviously, 2018 was one of our best years in a long time. It is, you know, it's one poll plus a couple other indicators. But I start with this not because any one poll is reflective of a permanent reality, but because we need to believe, Stephen. We have to believe.
We need hope. We need hope that we can make change, right?
That's right. There's more than just this poll, which we'll get to, but we have to believe. We have to stop the doom and gloom because I think just complaining about things without acting is useless. And I think it's helpful for people to see a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, I think there's a couple takeaways here. So first off, this is actually a traditional arc of how politics works, right? So a party wins a presidential election, they come in with a ton of momentum. The other side isn't sure. I mean, they just lost an election, so by definition, there's not an easy answer in the immediate aftermath of the election. But over time, as the incumbent party's policies start becoming unpopular, the opposition party, which is in this case Democrats, get their legs under them. There start to be things that they can attack. There start to be things that they can expose. And I think that's kind of what's happening. So I think this is actually a fairly normal arc. It's just maybe quicker and more intense, which is good because what Trump is doing is obviously unprecedented. So I think that makes sense. And second, and I think we might get into this a little bit more later, but this is the underpinning for why they're trying to do the Republican gerrymandering in the House. And we just saw that in Missouri. I just went through that here. And they're doing it in Texas, Ohio, North Carolina, which I know we'll talk about. But the reason they're trying to redraw the maps is because they're trying to cushion the blow from the backlash from their unpopular policies, right? So this all kind of ties in together.
Yeah, and it's very real. Like the hill got steeper considerably because of the redistricting, which we'll talk about. But there are elections, New Jersey and Virginia, coming up right now. This is from Michael Pruser on Twitter. I can't remember if we had Michael on this podcast or not, but we had one of those experts on this podcast. But this is the New Jersey vote by mail in as of 10/22, and I'm reading from Pruser's tweet. Democrats picked up just over 7,000 raw votes to increase their turnout lead and cut the Republicans' return rate edge, which is key to say. It's the return rate, not total number, but return rate edge by 10 basis points. So Democrats cut into it by 10. So right now, the Republican return rate in New Jersey is 48.43%. Democratic return rate is 47.93%. But because there are more Democrats in New Jersey than there are Republicans, the Democratic raw vote advantage right now stands at 165,692. According to Pruser, the first day of early in-person voting is Saturday. And in 2024, Democrats won the first day of voting by 1.2%, outvoting Republicans by about 1,500 votes. If it is to believe that Chitterelli, the Republican, has enthusiasm on his side, Republicans are going to have to not simply eke out a win on the first day, but generate a somewhat convincing one. So it doesn't tell us anything permanent, because we've been through this before with the early vote and the vote by mail and all that. But I think all this is to say is that there's nothing to be concerned about right now in those numbers from New Jersey. Folks in New Jersey got to continue to organize. You got to get out there and you got to vote. I think there's a lot of, people ringing alarms over the Democrats' campaign in New Jersey and the ascendance of the Republican. And I'm not close enough to know one thing or the other, but all I'm saying is there's nothing in the data of who's voted yet to tell us we should be concerned. I think there's plenty of votes left to be cast, and Democrats have everything they need to maximize their advantage and win a race that we really should win.
Yeah, and if you look at any given race, it's there are going to be internal dynamics. There's going to be unique things about any race. Where any given race, it can be hard to extrapolate. Much broader than that outcome. But what you're seeing when you see a race like that, when you see Virginia, when you see the polling that's come in from a couple different pollsters, is movement across the board. And I think to your point about Democrats needing hope, this movement is the payoff that we're seeing for everyone who's listening to this podcast, who has been speaking up, who has been attending rallies, who did the No Kings protests and rallies last weekend, who were out working all summer. The payoff, we're seeing the needle move. And to your point of hope, I hope everybody listening, because I know if you're listening to this, you're probably fairly active. Like it doesn't feel like it on maybe an individual level, but we are collectively making a difference. And it's going to be the sum of millions of us doing billions of actions that get this country back where it needs to go.
Well, Ted Cruz noticed the No Kings protests. Let's go to what he had to say.
Well, listen, there is no agenda in the Democrat Party today other than hatred for Donald Trump. And they are obsessed. They hate Donald Trump. I agree with you that these protests, they were not organic. They were paid for. They were bought and paid for. You and I talked about before how George Soros, there's real evidence that George Soros is paying for it. I talked about on my podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz. I laid out the receipts, how Soros's foundation has given over $3 million to Indivisible, one of the key organizers of these protests. I think in many ways they're AstroTurf. However, the warning that I'm announcing, listen, on the left, hatred is a powerful motivator, and there is an energized base on the left who hates Donald Trump, and people who are energized can show up to vote on election day. And I fear sometimes that on the right, people are a little too relaxed, a little too complacent. They feel like, okay, we're winning, things are great. And that can be a dangerous combination. Right now, you look at small donors. Democrats are outraising Republicans online 3-1 or more because their side is filled with rage. I think there are a lot more Americans who believe in common sense, who like a secure border, like our families being safe, like the economy coming back. Like there is an incredible record of success to campaign on. But the warning that I'm putting out is we've got to make sure that we turn people out, because if we're complacent and sit on our laurels, that's how you lose the House or even potentially lose the Senate. We can't let that happen because the stakes are too high. And that means we got to make sure we turn people out.
So on the one hand, he's talking about Soros, but then he's like all the small donors and all this energy and all that. We don't need to address all that stuff around the donations and all that. But needless to say, he's half-heartedly giving, he's playing the old hits around Soros funding this. But the second part reveals where his head really is, which is obviously he's looking at these protests. He's looking at the small donors. He's looking at the same polling that we're seeing. And he's using common sense and the cyclical realities that you're talking about, even if Trump weren't as horrible as he is right now. And he knows that there's a real storm brewing.
I love that he plugged his podcast.
Yeah, I mean, this is where we are now.
U.S. Senator doing an interview, just plugged his own podcast. So he got that in there. And hey, he's right. I am filled with rage. I'm absolutely filled with rage when I watch what Donald Trump is doing to this country. And so are tens of millions of other people. And he's absolutely right that he should be worried about that, because it is a powerful motivator. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's fine. We should embrace it. Now, on the positive side of things, like what I've been trying to train my brain as I read a lot of these stories that come through and that you and I talk about, is to train your brain in a proactive way to be like, okay, what do I now do with this information? And I think Senator Schatz, I think, had a really good riff where he's basically saying, okay, here, let me take all this crazy news that we got this week and try to package it into a compelling message for the Americans, to the American people. Let's go to this clip.
2 points. The first thing is that this is not about money. There is enough money to bail out Argentina with $20 billion. There is enough money to purchase a brand new aircraft for $173 million for the Homeland Security Secretary. There is enough money to renovate the White House ballroom. What there's not enough money for under this Republican government is you. There's not enough money for you. And it is astonishing to me that the party in charge of the government literally won't show up to work during the second longest shutdown in American history. House Republicans have been gone for more than a month. More than a month. They've worked 2 weeks out of the last 3 months. Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah, so what I like about this is like he's taking this sort of package of information of the total bullshit coming out of this administration and saying, okay, let me stoke some outrage with the American public. And there was a tweet from a gentleman, Brooklyn Dad Defiant, who I think packaged a lot of this together too. And he said, Trump Republicans will approve $40 billion in a bailout for Argentina, $1 billion to upgrade a $400 million Qatari jet, $172 million for 2 Christie Nome private jets, $230 million legal fee reimbursement to Trump, which we'll get to, $200 million for a fancy White House ballroom that literally nobody asked for, but they won't extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies to save the lives and bank accounts of millions of Americans about to see astronomical increases of as much as 400%, mostly by states. This is how you do it, right? I think like this corruption alone sometimes isn't enough to move people, but I think if you package to say they're still enriching themselves while they're cutting your health care, I think we're onto something.
You actually have to package it with what Ted Cruz said. Ted Cruz started out by saying the Democrats don't have any agenda except being mad at Trump. And what Senator Schatz, who I think is one of the most consistent communicators in the Democratic side, he does a really nice job sticking on something. Like he's been sticking on the fact that the House isn't showing up to work. But what we're demonstrating is there actually is a very clear agenda. Like the demands for reopening the government are actually very clear, right? They are extend the ACA subsidies so the price of healthcare does not go up for millions of Americans. So we have a very clear message that we are fighting for, what we are doing to fight for them, and as you pointed out, what the alternative is. So your choices are: do you want, government officials flying around in new private jets, Qatari jets, new ballrooms, or do you want to protect the cost of your healthcare and reduce the expenses to your family? It's a very clear choice that we're laying out, and I think he did a really nice job explaining that.
Yeah, I think we need to protect the ACA. We need to protect the subsidies. I wish it were something slightly. I feel like Democrats were always like, we're always on this territory of like the tax deduction, the subsidy, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wish it were a little simpler in language, like it's not the fault of the Democrat. It's a very important and meaningful change to people's lives. But the next fight, I want us to try to find something bumper sticker. And I know this sounds so simple, but like we're getting our asses kicked in the messaging traditionally because Trump is just willing to say any simplistic thing, right? No tax on tips or whatever, I want us to have our version of that. This is not a critique because they're protecting the right thing here. It's just more a hope and aspiration for future fights.
It's always more difficult to build than it is to destroy, right? Destroying something is simple. And to your point, like I think it would be ideal if it was something that made people's lives better rather than fighting to keep them from getting worse, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, that's what Senator Schatz was doing. Meanwhile, Speaker Johnson had to defend the president's social media. Let's go to this clip.
Speaker Johnson, you say that the Democrats had a Hate America rally, but what does it say that the President of the United States over the weekend released a video of him pooping on the American people?
The president uses social media to make a point. You can argue he's probably the most effective person who's ever used social media for that. He is using satire to make a point. He is not calling for the murder of his political opponents, and that's what these people are doing. I mean, they're in one of these photos. I think there's a picture of the president hanging in effigy by a noose on one of these. The one on the far end. I mean, it's unconscionable.
So he's using social media to prove a point.
What's the point?
What point exactly is he making? So that's one thing. He was then asked about Speaker Jeffries and the threats against Speaker Jeffries by somebody who was pardoned over January 6th. So you think about somebody who takes political violence so seriously, he would be taking that seriously. Let's go to this clip.
Did President Trump make a mistake by just offering up a blanket pardon for every single person that was convicted as a result?
I don't know any of the details of this at all. I don't know who's been alleged to have been involved in this. I will say that anybody who threatens political violence against elected officials or anyone else should be have the full weight and measure of the Department of Justice on their head. I trust that will happen. I hope it will. We are intellectually consistent about that, obviously. I will tell you this. The violence on the left is far more prevalent than the violence on the right. Don't make me go through the list. You all know it. All of these the assassination culture that's been advanced now, this is the left in almost every case that is advancing this and not the right. So let's not make it a partisan issue. You don't want me to go there. We're just going to say anybody, any deranged individual, this has to stop. And
let's not make it a partisan issue. Your colleague was just threatened by somebody who tried to break into your place of business and was pardoned by the guy who's basically essentially your boss, or you're treating him that way. And then when you're asked about it, you have strategic amnesia, right? But you seem to have this very specific memory for the left and you want to deflect left, but you don't want to make it partisan. One more clip here on this whole setup, which is this general. I didn't know who this guy was, but he's very impressive. Harry Sisson.
It was a great, phenomenal clip. He did a wonderful job.
Super smart guy. I was just looking at this like, wow. I think he distilled down this question of right versus left political violence really well when pushed in some, I guess, right-wing show he went on or whatever. Let's go to this.
Now, you keep talking about political violence, and we have study after study that shows that more political violence comes from the right wing, especially in modern American history, than it does from the left wing. So even if you just want to ignore the data, question for you. When Donald Trump mocked Paul Pelosi getting beaten over the head with a hammer, was that okay? When Donald Trump Jr. did the same, was that okay? When Mike Lee, senator from Utah, mocked the murder of Melissa Hortman and her husband in her home on Twitter, was that okay? When Donald Trump didn't lower the flag for Melissa Hortman after he did, of course, for Charlie Kirk, was that okay? When he was asked about Melissa Hortman, he said, who is that? He didn't know who Melissa Hortman was, didn't even attend her funeral like President Biden did, former President Biden. So these are examples of political violence. The largest example of modern political violence comes from your party, Donald Trump, on January 6th, and then he proceeded to pardon all of those people. So you keep talking about political violence, but every major Democrat in office has condemned any violence. I would condemn anybody at these protests saying they want to take the lives of any conservatives for their beliefs. But your guy pardoned people who beat police officers over the head. He mocked the beating of Nancy Pelosi's husband.
Perfect. And I think that's a good place for us to take a break. But before we do, I'm starting a writers group, a writers class that's starting in 2026, and it's all focused on finishing. So it's going to meet once a week, and it's going to be for people who have something they want to write, whether it's a novel, a nonfiction book, or whatever. And we work on it throughout the course of the year, and also hear from industry experts and publishers and authors. And folks can read about it at ravimgupta.com/analog. That's ravimgupta.com/analog. We'll put a link to it in the show notes and in the YouTube, and folks could check that out. We're taking applications until December 10th, but we're doing it on a rolling basis. So if you're interested, you probably want to apply early. So with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about redistricting. We're going to talk about Democratic donors potentially on the sidelines, the fight over Maine Senate, escalation in Venezuela, and Epstein, and more when we get back. IndaCloud is a fully legal online dispensary. No cards, no dispensary runs, no mystery gummies from a friend's cousin. They already delivered over 10 million gummies, mountains of flour, and enough pre-rolls to get another election season going. Every product is tested in DEA certified labs and shipped straight to your door discreetly. And IndaCloud is by far one of my favorite and most fun partners to work with. I've tried IndaCloud many times, and they have all these different flavors and different varieties. And one of the saddest things in coming to Italy was I had to discard a bunch of that stuff as I was heading out here. And I particularly like to, take these gummies, watch a cool movie or something. And sometimes I even take them before sleep because it can help for that too. Sometimes it even takes an edge off of a hangover. So if you want something stronger, there's even something called the Beast Mode collection. And it's still legal, still tested. And if flour's your thing, IndaCloud does exclusive deals year round. No gimmicks, no fine print. It's federally legal, THC made simple. That's why more than 50,000 customers already trust IndaCloud to keep their buzz hassle-free. If you're 21 or older, head to indacloud.co. Use code MAJORITY for 30% off your first order, plus free shipping. That's indacloud.co, code MAJORITY, 30% off, free shipping, and less stress delivered to your door. Support the show by filling out their quick survey when you order, and thank IndaCloud for making the news cycle just a little easier to handle. Don't forget, please enjoy responsibly. Have you ever fallen in love with a couch, lamp, or rug online and then your soul leaves your body when you see the price tag? Well, I'm going to let you in on a secret called dupe.com. It's ridiculously easy to use, and all you have to do is type dupe.com / before any product URL, and it instantly shows you similar and more affordable alternatives. These aren't sketchy knockoffs either. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Most furniture sold online is mass produced in the exact same factories. And those factories then sell to brands under different names who then list them for different prices. Dupe.com automatically lists these less expensive alternatives for you, so you're not overpaying just for some brand name. Dupe is one of the most viral shopping hacks on TikTok. Millions of people have already used Dupe to save money, and it's 100% free to use. That's $5,000. That $5,000 cloud sofa you don't think you can justify, that beautiful mid-century dresser you've been bookmarking forever, Dupe will find a similar item, sometimes even the same item for 60, 70, or even 80% off. With Dupe.com, you could finally decorate the house of your dreams without going broke. Dupe.com isn't just about furniture either. Dupe works for fashion, shoes, jewelry, and more. Dupe.com really is so easy to use. That's dupe.com / before any product URL in your browser, and boom, it instantly finds you less expensive alternatives. They even have an app and a browser extension you can download. No account required, no sign up required. It's completely free to use. Stop wasting money on brand names and start saving with dupe.com today. All right. Well, let's start with redistricting here. Because I've committed to make this a little bit more of an optimistic show. I'm not going to play the clip I was planning to clip from Governor Stein, but essentially the North Carolina legislature, reflecting a 50-50 state, should be 7-7. I think at the moment it's like 11-4 or something like that. And it's about to net one more to the Republicans. I might be off by one or two numbers, but the Republicans are about to net an additional seat. This seems to be happening all throughout the South. Democrats, either because of weird legal challenges with the states that we're in, because we had a lot of integrity, not perfect integrity, I want to be clear. Like, Democrats have had issues with this redistricting over the years, but where we've built in these commissions and the this and the that, a lot of our states are tough, and in some cases we have leaders who don't have backbone on this issue. It's an uphill fight. Everything's going to be harder this election cycle. We already talked about that. Full stop. Unless you want to talk more about that.
I was going to give you, in the spirit of optimism, we got an optimistic update.
Oh, good.
Everybody. So as folks listeners know, Missouri obviously is one of the states that they came in mid-cycle and trying to re-gerrymander. They'd already gerrymandered once. They already got rid of one Democratic seat. They came back and tried to get rid of another one mid-census cycle. So they were trying to just carve up Emanuel Cleaver's seat in Kansas City, so Kansas City wouldn't have any congressional district that they were the majority in anymore. And we have a unique thing in Missouri. Every state obviously has a unique process. We have something called the citizens veto, which when a bill passes here in Missouri, if we get enough signatures from voters and within 90 days, we can take the bill essentially off the governor's desk and put it directly to a vote of the people. And it's frozen in place. Like the bill doesn't go into effect until the people vote on it. And so we're trying to do that with redistricting. So we're trying to collect signatures to put the redistricting map on the ballot in 26, which would freeze the current lines through the 26 cycle, protect Congressman Cleaver's seat. And it's going really well. I think we're pretty close to the signature threshold already. Obviously, the Republican folks here are playing games and trying to ignore the signatures, but I think we're going to beat them. And so some good news from Missouri.
How can folks get involved? Because we got a ton of Missouri folks. How can they sign it?
So People Not Politicians is the name of the group. If you search Missouri People Not Politicians, you can find their website. We're collecting signatures all over the state. And we've got till early December to get them done. And so I think we're in good shape. And I hope folks around the country know that even here in a red state in Missouri in the Midwest, we're fighting back, and we're going to do our part to try to bring a House majority by protecting this Kansas City district that they tried to gerrymander in special session.
Say that website one more time for everybody.
I don't know the name of the website off the top of my head. But the group is People Not Politicians. So if you look up Missouri People Not Politicians, that's the name of the campaign.
Great. All right, folks, get out there. I think we probably have the biggest Missouri audience of any political podcast out there. So make yourselves known. Okay, there's this Wall Street Journal article about the title is Democratic donors sit on the sidelines as party schism persists. And it talks about how the Republican National Committee had $86 million in cash reserves at the start of October compared to $12 million for its Democratic counterpart. Now, part of this is the RNC, DNC, not too important right now, so I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. But it is also true that the campaigns are struggling, although there is rough parity at the House campaign arm and the Senate campaign arms. Now, Democrats should be trouncing based on everything we talked about, funding-wise. The Republicans for both the committees on the House and the Senate, and for a couple of reasons I think we aren't. One is there's a distrust of these arms now, I think in part fueled by people within our own party, and I'll get to this. Ben Rhodes over at Crooked Media and the folks like that have been tweeting things like, "We don't trust who the DCCC or he said the DSCC candidates," and he was speaking about it, I think, in the context of Michigan and Maine. We'll get to that. I have some strong feelings about the way he positioned that. And then you have small donors. So you have the small donors who are listening to that, and then you have big donors who I think are afraid of Trump. But who also this Wall Street, so they don't want to cut big checks and put targets on their backs. But also this Wall Street Journal article seems to suggest that those folks are kind of at odds with the very people I'm mentioning, like the folks, like the crooked folks who want either Abdul Sayed or Plattner in Maine and all that. They're more moderate, quote unquote. I don't like that terminology in this context, but they are using some of them might be using it as cover because they're afraid of Trump and they just want to come up with a face-saving excuse. Some of them probably are genuinely concerned, but either way, there's a schism within the party that's creating these problems. This has to be solved in some way. Now, it doesn't have to be solved with just big donors. It could just be small donors stepping into candidates directly. You could bypass the committees. That's totally fine. But we need to have that enthusiasm showing up with resources to campaigns. Full stop. And folks need to stop making excuses for not giving. Like if you're a donor, I don't want to hear you're whining about the DCCC or DSCC. We're probably aligned. We're probably similarly moderate, quote unquote, and probably would back a lot of the same candidates. But don't whine about it. Find the candidates and give to the candidates you like. We're still in primary season. They're talking about this like it's a full-blown conclusion. And the basic bargain is this. Let's fight it out in the primaries. Give to whoever you think is the best candidate. And whenever that candidate emerges, whether it's the one you like or not, with the D next to it, we're going to support that person, whether it's the left candidate, the moderate candidate, whatever. That's the bargain we got to have heading into these elections with this kind of coalition that we're in. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I love what you said there about we're going to fight it out in primaries and then we're going to all support whoever comes out of the primary. That's the right answer. There's nothing wrong with having a primary and having a different vision. And we think about that in terms of the presidential race. Like, yeah, everybody gets to put out their vision for the country and then we'll back the person whose vision wins. On the money thing, I would say, I'm going to say one negative thing and then say a couple positive things. So on the I guess the more negative leaning thing, Yeah, after a presidential campaign spends $1.5 billion and loses every swing
Yes.
state, there is going to be some accountability and some, hey, is the money going in the right place? Like that's completely understandable and completely appropriate. I would say on the more optimistic side, to what we said earlier about a political cycle, yeah, like the Republicans won. They came into 2025 with a lot of momentum. That was expected. Their fundraising is going to be good at the beginning. And the opposition party, as we get our feet underneath us and as we start settling in on a message, it's natural to see that fundraising grow over, over the back half of the cycle. And I expect that's probably what will happen. And then the second point for folks listening who if are probably obviously politically active, but may not make this like your full-time job. I'm always very cautious in these apples to apples comparisons. Like when they say RNC versus DNC or the DS versus the Republican Senate, like sometimes there are structural reasons, like one party is running stuff through a different type of PAC, or like to your point, the DNC is more of a presidential vehicle. Money might be going to another entity this early in the cycle. So I think people should be a little cautious when you see a story about comparing, entities, because parties might be using different strategies that account for that's not reflected in the fundraising totals.
Right. Well, I think that the fissures that I'm alluding to are most noticeable right now in this Maine Senate race. And last week, Jason and I talked about this, and I said to Jason, as the governor jumped in, and a lot of my friends and colleagues and former and current, in some cases, collaborators, so many people jumped in to basically explicitly endorse Graham Plattner, the kind of upstart candidate. And I said to Jason then, I was like, I'm not saying he's not the guy. I'm saying he has to go through a primary. And I was concerned then. I'm even more concerned now. And I said he needs to be vetted. That's literally what I said last week. It wasn't me saying I wouldn't support him. It was me saying the person needs to be vetted, because the whole purpose of a primary is that you have to show yourself to the voters. And Maine happens to be the oldest state in the country. So we're not talking about like young activist base for the election. This is an old state. And now not all old people are more moderate or whatever, but obviously folks listening to this know that the older people in your life are a little bit more resistant to change than young people, which means that you have an even higher climb in a place like Maine. You happen to have an opponent with strengths and vulnerabilities, right? Jason and I were trading texts about the governor has pretty good approval rating for modern elections, also very strong performance in elections. She's also really freaking old. So you have a clash of somebody who's fairly popular within Maine and a track record and quote unquote vetted at least by that state. And then you have somebody who has some exciting things about him, but also we don't know a lot yet. So we need to learn. And Jonathan Martin in Politico, and this is an article that I think is making the rounds, and this is his words, not mine, so don't come at me, audiences. He said, once his Democratic rival, Maine Governor Janet Mills, entered the race, Plattner was hit with a nor'easter of Oppo research that had the added value of being his own damning words, rationalizing political violence, calling himself a communist, referring to all police as bastards, and calling himself an Antifa super soldier. Plattner's paper trail was the stuff of Senator Collins's dreams, and that was before Plattner tried to get ahead of the next hit by revealing the apparent Nazi tattoo on his naked torso. Now, we could talk about every one of these, and I'm sure there are some explanations for some of these or not. And again, he's in the primary. I'm not saying the guy should drop out. Like, he's got to explain himself. But my issue is where I'm concerned is tweets by people like Ben Rhodes, who I've worked with a lot. He tweeted out last week as Mills was entering the race that he was implying it was a DSCC conspiracy and basically saying he's against DS candidates now. And I said then, and I'm even more emphatic about this, is that the governor of Maine is not, it's so reductive to call her a DS candidate. Like, she's the governor of Maine. She's been voted in twice by the electorate of Maine and still enjoys popular support from those people. I wouldn't call Plattner a Justice Democrats candidate or whoever has endorsed him, right? Like, he is a person, he's complex. That complexity will play out throughout the course of this election. And I think we're overlearning the last lesson of the past election and not looking ahead to the next election. And I think we're being sloppy and unrigorous in the way we're thinking about these things. We have to embrace the process. You have to let the people of Maine make a selection. You have to let the candidates show themselves. You have to let whatever we know about these people reveal themselves over the next few months, and then let the people of Maine pick this person. And I'm concerned that like a lot of these people who are the establishment are inventing this paper tiger of the establishment, which doesn't really matter that much anymore, as an excuse to I think, funnel through our discourse some rather sloppy ideas. So this is my problem with this main thing. And to be clear to the audience, Jason said he was warm to Platter, so he and I are kind of like loosely on different like valences on this. I think neither of us has said who we would support in the end, and I'm not even sure if I would support anybody because I don't live in Maine. But yeah, Weber, this is where I am now.
Yeah, I don't know much about Maine, but the one thing everybody I've ever known from Maine, like it's a small state. There's the politics there are very personal in terms of like I think I've known like 2 or 3 people from Maine. They were all Democrats, and they all had a connection to Susan. Like Susan Collins went to their grandma's funeral. Like it's a very small place, and I think the politics, like I said, it's very old school, I guess, in like knowing each other. So the voters in Maine will a lot of them will have firsthand knowledge of all this stuff. To your point, though, and my first professional job in politics started with Claire McCaskill in 2007. So I've been it's been like 18 years for me. So I'm pretty in this. This stuff is really hard. Like it's really, really tough. And that's not to say that a person can't come out of nowhere and be good at it, because they can. It's possible. But I will say that there is I'm more of a traditionalist in the process of, running for local offices and working your way up and learning different things. And one of the benefits of that is you are vetted. What you've done is, your history is out there for people. And to your point, like that's an appropriate part of the process. And it's good that vetting is occurring. It needs to happen. And I will say again, people can certainly run for U.S. Senate or governor out of nowhere. There's a long list of times that's happened, and it's ended up really, really horrible in terms of even if they win. Like Eric Greitens here in Missouri is a Republican example of a guy that came out of nowhere, hadn't run for lower office, and wasn't really vetted. And then after he was elected governor, it turned out he was a horrible person. So I think that vetting process is really, really important, and it's happening quicker now because it used to be that you would never think about running for U.S. Senate if you had, worked on school board and city council and state legislature and all that stuff. But to me, that serves a value. It's not required, but it does serve a value. And I agree with you. The vetting is really important.
Yeah, I think we've almost gone from 0 to 100 on some of this stuff, right? It's like I buy that we should take seriously unconventional candidates, but somehow we've leapfrogged that reality to we must embrace the unconventional candidate immediately. And I'm like, well, I'm not like, and it's so abstract, right? It's like, well, let's take it case by case, right? Like there are some unconventional candidates, and he could be one of them, can show themselves to be extremely adept and the exact person for the moment. And many of them will fizzle out. And the only way we will know is by putting it to the actual voters. And it is insulting to the people of Maine who have elected the governor twice to suggest that there's some grand conspiracy driving her into this race that doesn't start with the people of Maine who've now trusted her twice. Like that's where it should start.
And I want to be really clear. This isn't gatekeeping about people running for office, because somebody might say, well, you say everybody should run for, yeah, for sure. There is a fundamental difference between running for state senate like I'm in right now, or the state house or school board or city council, and running for U.S. Senate. Like I've told Jason, I was obviously with Jason in 2016 when he ran and was just hit with an onslaught of tens of millions of dollars. And I've told him before, like, I don't know if there's 1,000 people in human history that have gone through. I don't know if there's 500 people in human history that have gone through what a human being goes through in a competitive U.S. Senate election, right? Where there's millions, tens and tens of millions of dollars crawling through every aspect of your life. And then, like, I remember going to a restaurant with Jason in 2016. I was running for state Senate. He was running for U.S. Senate. And we just looked at a wall of TVs, and every single television on the wall, every single one of them is a negative ad about one of the two of us. And we were just we were just staring at it like in disbelief. So just to be clear, like, we're not talking about, hey, should a new person get involved? Yes, you should absolutely get involved. The question is, does running for U.S. Senate without having been vetted, like, is that a good idea? And that's a separate topic than people running for office.
Yeah, and also get vetted. Again, my point is,
just what's happening. Right,
like, get in the race, get vetted. My critique is not of him; it is of the people who rushed, not only to like support who you want to support, not only rushed to support him, but implied and explicitly stated in a lot of cases that there was a conspiracy to support other people, and that those of us who weren't there with them at the exact moment that they were there on Platner were some kind of like establishment neoliberals. And I'm like, come on now. Like, there was literally the day the governor jumped in, you want me to have an opinion about it? Like, so that's what I said last week. I believe it even more today. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk Venezuela. We're going to talk Trump demanding money from his own Justice Department. We'll talk a little shutdown, some Epstein, and if we have time, we'll talk about some agriculture when we get back. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. And I did too, until I found out that Nutrafol isn't like the rest of them. Nutrafol is physician formulated, clinically tested, and dermatologists recommend it. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body, since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF content certified, the gold standard and third-party certification for supplements. While many supplements rely solely on ingredient studies, Nutrafol clinically tests final formulations to ensure their efficacy using a variety of hair measurement tools like hair counts and pull tests to assess growth, quality, shedding, and texture. Adding Nutrafol into your daily routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription required, automated deliveries, and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, with Nutrafol's subscription, you can save up to 20%, and you'll have access to free one-on-one naturopathic doctor consults to support you on your hair growth journey. And a Headspace meditation membership is also included. So see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's prescription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the code MAJORITY. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com. That's spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code MAJORITY. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code MAJORITY. Big moments deserve less stress and more confidence. When ED shows up in the bedroom, Hims helps you keep your cool and focus on what matters most. The moment, not the worry. Through Hims, you can access personalized prescription treatment options for ED like Hard Mints and Sex RX Plus, Climax Control, if prescribed. Hims offers access to ED treatment options ranging from trusted generics that cost 95% less than brand names to Hard Mints if prescribed. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hims brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. This isn't one-size-fits-all care that forgets you in the waiting room. It's your health and goals put first, with real medical providers making sure you get what you need to get results. And think of Hims as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self. With 100% online, simple access to trusted treatments for ED and more, all in one place. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/majority. That's hims.com/majority for your free online visit. hims.com/majority. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. All right, Stephen, we're going to try a lightning round here and get through as much as we possibly can. Let's start with Senator Rand Paul on the Venezuela question.
Number one, there is no fentanyl made in Venezuela. Not just a little bit, there's none being made in Venezuela. These are outboard boats that, in order for them to get to Miami, would have to stop and refuel 20 times. they're in all likely going to Trinidad and Tobago, which is an island right off of the coast of Venezuela. So there's a lot of reasons to be worried about this. But number one is the broader principle of when can you kill people indiscriminately? When you're at war. That's why when we declare war, it's supposed to be done by Congress. It's supposed to be thoughtful. It's supposed to be debated. And we're not supposed to do it willy-nilly. And then when you have war, you just kill people in the war zone. And even then there are rules of engagement. But interdicting drugs has always been a criminal activity and a criminal anti-crime sort of activity where we don't just summarily execute people. We actually present evidence and convict them.
So love to see him, contradicting this administration on a really important issue. He also voted for Pete Hegseth. I haven't seen him say that has he said he regrets that vote?
I haven't seen
that. Yeah, that's where I come down on that. So that's issue number one. Number two, there's this reporting, and it may be clarified at this point and somewhat clarified by this clip, maybe, but there's reporting that Trump is seeking a judgment from his own Justice Department over, I think, January 6th and all the cases against him, treating it like ABC. He was asked about this from Caitlin Collins.
The New York Times is reporting that your legal team is seeking $230 million from your own Justice Department now in response to the investigations into you. Is that something you want your legal team to do?
I don't know what the numbers are. I don't even talk to them about it. All I know is that they would owe me a lot of money, but I'm not looking for money. I'd give it to charity or something. I would give it to charity, any money. But look, what they did, they rigged the election. And as you know, we had, in one case, 60 Minutes had to pay us a lot of money. George Slobodanopoulos had to pay us a lot of money, and they already paid. They paid me a lot of money because what they did was wrong. And when somebody does what's wrong, now with the country, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right? And that decision would have to go across my desk, and it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much you're paying yourself in damages? But I was damaged very greatly, and any money that I would get, I would give to charity.
There's like 20 things crazy about that clip.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the optimistic episode, so I won't say too much about that clip, other than I think it's revealing, and in some ways, the more he embraces outright corruption, this is where the Schatz argument needs to come full frontal. Like, it's not just that he's enriching himself.
This is straight looting money, straight up taking it.
It's just happening in plain sight. I mean, obviously, we have the Homeland Security official who accepted a bribe allegedly on tape, and we have no reason to think that that allegation is not true. They've done nothing to dispel it. And we keep mounting these examples. We have to keep pushing them forward and connecting them to the voters, not just your tax dollars, but they're also cutting your services at the same time. Let's talk about the shutdown. Thune was asked about the status of negotiations. This is what he had to say.
Have a little backbone and a willingness to take on their leadership and do the right thing for the country.
You are now 3 weeks into this shutdown, and the two sides don't appear to even be talking. Do you owe it to the American people to at least be negotiating?
Well, I think we are. We have negotiated. I don't know what there is to negotiate. This is about opening up the government. We have offered them several off-ramps now. The Democrats want something that's totally untenable. As Senator Barrasso said, I mean, they want $1.5 trillion in new spending. They want free health care for people who are non-citizens in this country. That is just a flat non-starter. It doesn't pass the Senate. It won't pass the House. It won't be signed into law by the president. What you do have is a bill that's passed the House, sitting at the desk in the Senate, that the president's prepared to sign to open up the government. So I'm not sure. People keep saying, negotiate. Negotiate what? I don't know what that is right now. The government needs to open up. And then we're happy to sit down and talk about any other issues that Democrats want to talk about.
So it's not true that they'll sit down and talk about anything else. It's fine. But he was like, oh, we are negotiating. Yet we're not negotiating. It's like the Mike Johnson clip. They're not even trying to be coherent.
Yeah, you can tell from the context. You don't have to know any of the background. You can tell from the words that he said in the clip that he's lying, right? Yeah. Like, that's what always amazes me, is like, you don't even have to know anything other than just watching the clip where he says, we are negotiating. We have negotiated. And then he goes on to say, there's nothing to negotiate. We're not going to negotiate. But you just said you are negotiating. And now you're saying you're like, it within the clip itself, it's not logically coherent. It doesn't hold up, even if you know no background of the situation.
Well, Trump said he would only meet with the Democrats once the shutdown is over, so he's not interested in meeting either. He also said something really interesting about how he's going to punish Schumer.
Ways, welfare programs, etc. And we're doing that, and we're cutting them permanently. We're cutting a $20 billion project that Schumer fought for 15 years to get, and I'm cutting the project. The project is going to be dead. It's pretty much dead right now.
Well, how significant will the layoffs?
So what he's talking about there is the Gateway Project, which is it would expand and improve this congestion between New Jersey and New York. Now, if this were any normal politics, as we head into a New Jersey gubernatorial election, this would be a seismic thing. And it could be. We don't know. The timing is not good for the Republican candidate in New Jersey. And the question is it going to become an issue? It's just something to keep on our radar. Obviously, it's highly inappropriate for reasons we don't even need to talk about. And he continues to punish blue states and reward red states, sort of. Although we'll have to talk about next week, like the ongoing ag war, which I think needs to be its own long segment because there's a lot happening in rural America and with farming. And I want to do it justice with a full-on segment early in the episode. So all that is going on. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives continues to bungle this Epstein investigation. Let's start with Speaker Johnson.
And let me say this clearly as well. The bipartisan House Oversight Committee is already accomplishing what the discharge petition, that gambit, sought, and much more. The Epstein estate files that have been this new treasure trove, the third batch of information released right now, was not even included in the discharge petition. They didn't even think of it. And again, the investigation is bipartisan, it's nonstop, and it's far broader in scope than what is covered by the discharge petition and has already yielded significant results. Unfortunately, some Democrats and sadly even a couple of Republicans have tried to make this a political issue. They seem to be more interested in trying somehow to lay a glove on the president than in securing justice for these victims, and I think that is shameful. But as Chairman Comer will tell you, the work of the bipartisan investigation continues, and we brought him here to share with you some of those thoughts. Chairman Comer, thank you for your hard work.
So Comer then gets on and says this is the most transparent, yada, 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 whatever. All of this was legalese. He's trying to distract people. There are two easy facts here. Number one is the Justice Department is in possession of a list of every time Trump's name is mentioned in those files. They could release that tomorrow. And number two is Maxwell has been moved without explanation to a cushy minimum security prison in an unprecedented fashion. Trump has been asked repeatedly whether he pardoned her. He won't give an answer. Those are the facts that need to be front and center in all of this. They're just throwing a lot of jargon out there, but those facts continue to be inconvenient for them.
Yeah, I mean, one of our problems right now is the Speaker of the House, his brain is mush because he's being asked to do the impossible and defend the undefensible. And so the only way he can do that is to either confuse everybody else or himself and try to turn around and to lash out in anger, right? That's what people do when they have to do things they don't like to do. And I've watched politicians do that, before, and that's what he's doing right now. It's just utterly ridiculous. And I really don't think people are going to see through that.
Well, I think on that sunny note, we have come to the end of our time today. We were mostly optimistic. And look, elections are helpful because in contrast to like the dead of June or something, right, where there'll be elections here and there, we got two big ones coming up. And then immediately after those, hopefully we get good news. We show people that there are still many fights left to be won over the next couple of years. And then we head into a primary season. And yes, whether you agree with me or not on anything I said about which candidates, which I didn't really talk about which ones I support or not, I really don't know, but that we embrace the primaries. We don't tear each other apart. We have substantive and it can be passionate disagreements about the direction of the party. What will inevitably happen is many candidates of many stripes will win. We will support all of them in the general election. And despite all of the obstacles in front of us, we will win if we hang together. That is what this is about.
Amen. And I looked up the website. If you want to try to help Missouri save that congressional district, if you live in Missouri, you want to volunteer. If you live outside the state, you just want to help us. It's People Not Politicians Mo. Missouri.org.
There you go. Get out there, Missouri folks. Yeah, I think you got a bye week this week, right, with the Chiefs. So got y'all looking good. I gotta give it to you.
I think we play the Commanders. We play the Commanders on Monday. Is that this upcoming Monday or 2 Mondays from now?
Oh no, you're right. You have a bye after that, and then you play us. Yeah, but you guys are looking better. Yeah, but we're running out of time. We can't talk about that.
Oh man!
Thank you, thank you everybody for listening. Remember, you all have a platform. Make sure to use yours today.